Om Shri Sai Ram. With most loving pranams at your divine lotus feet, Swami, I'd like to welcome everyone on the occasion of Swami's Aradhana Mahotsavam. We are very fortunate to have with us today someone who was blessed by Bhagwan to be his student from early in life and then went on to receive a gold medal from the divine hands of Bhagwan as a student in 1990, subsequently joined the Anantapur campus of the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, where she currently serves as the head of the Department of Commerce and Management. She earned her PhD in 2014, focusing on top women executives in India. And she's also the recipient of a prestigious award in teaching. And beyond her academic contributions, she is a person who has diverse talents and deep spiritual commitment. We are very, very fortunate to have with us Dr. Suma Rao, and personally, she defines herself as a seeker, a learner, and a pilgrim in the long but sure journey towards Sai. On behalf of everyone who has joined this evening, I'd like to welcome Dr. Suma Rao. Jai Sai Ram.
My humble pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. I would first like to thank the Tustin Center for inviting me for this talk. I believe this is one of the oldest centers, and that means it must have seen generations of devotees. And so it's great honor and pleasure to be talking to all of you today, and that too on such a special day, the Aradhana Day. The Aradhana Day, as the word implies, is worship of God. It is to adore and extol Him. And we have every reason to do that, because just think of it. It's like pure love actually descends on earth and walks amidst us and allows us a glimpse into this royal road of love. I cannot think of a better blessing that God can give to humanity, and how much blessed are we to have been born at a time when He was there, and to know Him in our life, let it touch our lives. So that is the greatest way to spend, remembering all this love would be the best way to spend such a day. So I thank again the Tustin Center to give me this opportunity to reminiscence and also to share with such a august and devoted gathering. I was just going through this discourse which Swami delivered in the 1980s, and he says that you're all brought here because of love. That means the reason why we come into earth is also because of love, and also that it is love that brings us closer to Him. And it's love that binds all of us together. The whole Sai family is knitted with this common purpose, Swami. Swami says it is beyond that. The entire world is filled with love, and devoid of love, there's no life. So this is the great principle that we are going to think about. So let us start with what starts the journey. All of us start the journey with ourselves, actually. And my journey with Swami began much earlier, because Swami came in our lives when I was just a child, barely at the age of 4, I think was the first time. So Swami grew up like a part of the scenario. He was everywhere, the pictures were everywhere, the talk was everywhere. But there is a difference between knowing Swami and knowing Swami, in the sense awakening to Swami. And I think that Anantapur helps not just me, but thousands of students who pass through this. Their conscious connection with Swami begins there. And I think that is what the centers do also. I think all over the US, the different Sathya Sai centers, they allow us not just to awaken in that sense to God within us, but also to maintain or take that journey further. And that is why maybe Swami started all these organizations and institutions, and we're really grateful for that. So let me share with you the story, how it began. So when I joined Anantapur, I remember I was barely 15. I had joined what we call as the 11th grade here, 11th class here. And I remember sitting on the steps of the college, on the back end of this college. There is a ground and huge field. And right at the end, there are these blue short hills, but it's mainly, desertish because it's just plain land at the back. And we had brilliant sunsets and sunrises. So there was this vermilion shade sun and a tall eucalyptus swaying in the breeze. And I remember sitting there trying to sketch that scene in front of me. And I was thinking, does God even know I exist? Does he know? Because I'm just one roll number in this whole institution, and thousands of students pass out. What's the reality? Is it all my imagination that I even know God, or I think God cares about me? And all these kind of typical thoughts were going through my head. And as I was looking at the sun, I was thinking, maybe to be realistic, what's the relationship between man and God? Maybe it's like the sun and the earth. The sun is millions of miles away, and that light falls on us, and that warmth of the sun allows growth. So the whole principle of life is based on the warmth of the sun. But the sun is a million miles away, and that's the reality. So maybe that's how it is with God. We do grow in this ambience of love, but essentially that's where it is. He is a million miles away. So I was thinking of all these thoughts, and it used to be like, because in those days Swami was in Prasanthi with the boys, and they would get the so-called physical contact, while comparatively the girls were at greater distance. It took me a long time to know that that's the wrong way of measuring closeness, but at that point of time, it seemed very real at the distance, and I kept thinking like that. I remember the bell ringing, the prayer bell ringing, and then because bhajan time is common across all institutions, so I remember going to bhajan. On that very day, Swami had called my father for an interview on the same evening, actually, at the same time when I was sitting and thinking of all these so called intelligent thoughts. And Swami had called my father, and suddenly, out of the blue, he asked him, "You have a daughter in Anantapur?" And when my father said yes, he said, "Tell her that Anantapur is full of my presence, and if her heart is open, she can feel it or receive it." He said that. That message was, when it was relayed to me, was actually two things. A, he's omnipresent. He knows, he registers each one of us. And the second thing is that he also gave the means for us to know him. That is, to keep your heart open to him, to look for him, to sense him in everything. So this was probably the earliest of the initiations I can think into the path. And this morning, when I was telling my sister about this, she was telling me, I have a similar incident. And I said, I never knew about it. So let me share even that one. She said that when she was in school, she studied in primary school, and a similar thought crossed her head. It was holidays time, and so they were practically at home. But since our home was Patti, we would go for darshan every day. So she was not in the school uniform, but in a home dress. And I think she was about sixth or seventh class student then. She was wearing an orange kurta and a blue pajama. I'm saying these colors because they are significant. And then she was sitting in darshan, and she was thinking. She was about eighth or ninth row in the students, and I mean the students who stayed back for summer. And Swami passed by for darshan, and she was thinking, "This is how it is. Swami doesn't know I exist. Does he know, for example, that I'm sitting here, I'm thinking this, and I'm wearing these dress, because they were in civil clothes and not in the uniform." And I remember one of the interviews which came after that. He asked her, that dress you're wearing, orange one with my robe color with that blue pajama. It's very, very beautiful dress. He said that. It was his indirect way of saying, I know every thought that crosses your mind. I'm there, And so these are very powerful ways in which he let us know that I'm there. I'm there always. And I would like to tell you, one doubt may come to us. I mean, this is all when he was there in form, in his form. So what is it now? What is it now? Now, I remember in our college, we have a process in which we allow students to share their experiences or speak about Swami in the auditorium as a part of our morning prayer session. And this is on a few days in the week. And I remember one girl walking up there, and the experience she shared, it really shook me. And it's one of my favorite experiences of students that I've heard in the recent past. So she said about how she lived in a village nearby of Patti, but never really visited Patti. And her friend, who was interested in the shopping complex in Prasanthi Nilayam, told her, let's go shop. There is a place, today is Sunday, and let's just go. So they hopped into a bus, got down, and oblivious of everything, they made a beeline straight to the shopping complex, finished shopping, everything. And they ate ice creams, did this, all the things which young teenagers do, and then meandered around the ashram and they heard bhajan. I think it must have been the evening bhajan. So curious, they went in and they sat in the Kulwant hall, right in front of the Samadhi. Hardly any crowd, I think, that day. So they got a vantage point, the place near the two lions at the back end where you are directly opposite to the Samadhi. That's where they were sitting, it seems. And while they were sitting there and listening to bhajan, they were watching everything. And this girl was very impressed by the ceiling, the green and gold ceiling. She mentioned that. And then suddenly her eyes fell on this samadhi. And then as they lingered, she said something happened in her heart. She said tears welled in her eyes and she felt a deep longing as if she has come home after hundreds of years, and unabashed tears were flowing from her eyes. And her friend kept asking, what happened? Are you in pain? Are you hurt? Why are you crying? And she couldn't explain at that minute, but it shook her. And she said, when I went back home, I couldn't shake that experience. I kept thinking, what happened? What was that longing? Why did I feel that? And that prompted her to apply to the university and join it eventually. He still calls and he still comes in our lives, even now. And that's Swami for us. See, the concept of many students keep asking me in class, you were lucky, you had so many experiences. What is it for us? How is it going to be real to us? And I keep saying, if God is not accessible to us, how is he God, right? God, the principle of God is accessibility across time, space, and everything. And so he's always available. But there are preconditions to to feel him. That means we need to focus. We need to have faith. We need to open our hearts, as he told me clearly. And that's when he can come so deeply into our lives. And so this is one journey which we keep on telling the students that they have to begin. They should begin, because that is the most important journey that we make in our lives. I would also like to share another beautiful, what would I say, a USP, a unique selling point for us to focus on Swami. And this story happened in Brindavan. And it when I heard the story, it was so beautiful that I just want to share it with all of you. So the story goes that there were a few boys in the hostel, and after a meal, dinner, they thought, it's very warm in the room, so let's have a walk in the terrace, the hostel terrace. So they went up to the D floor, went to the terrace, and then they were walking in the terrace. And as they were walking, they kept talking about Swami. Invariably the conversations will tend to that. So each boy started talking about their family experiences, their own experiences. There were about three, four of them, and they kept on talking, talking, talking. And as it happens usually, when you start talking about Swami, you lose bearings on time. And suddenly they heard a bell ringing very loudly and it jarred them into reality. And then they went to the edge of the terrace and peeped, and to their shock and dismay, it was the Suprabhatam bell which was ringing, which means they had literally talked through the night. And they were like shocked that they looked at each other with shock and disbelief. Did we really do this? While in one hand they were worried what would be the of doing, not being there in the room and not sleeping. They were worried how it would be, but they decided to tell Swami about it. So they immediately attended Suprabhatam, and post that they go to darshan. So they took a piece of paper and started writing down about what they did. When Swami came beautifully at darshan time, the darshan music started. He wafted in front between them. As he neared them, they extended their hand with the letter. And as Swami picked the letter, he said, "Did not sleep, did not sleep." Telsu, Naku, Telsu. I know. And he took that letter, and these students were like shocked. And the beautiful part comes now. Swami stepped a few, Swami, went ahead, turned back, and looked at them and said, "God's love is so intoxicating." He said that. And I think that's the beautiful message that really we should take back. They say love is not mercenary, but who said it's not profitable? It's really like that. God's love is definitely not transactional. It's not mercenary. You get way more than you give in this whole journey. And that is the beauty, because the very experience of talking of him, thinking of him, it raises our hope. It raises our uh, qualities of all the positive qualities that we look for in life. And so it makes absolute common sense to, seek God. It's just logical to seek God in order to do well in life and in living, and even after that. So I just wanted to tell this beautiful story because it gives me the logic for why we should do what we should do. Since we were thinking of love, I just went through the discourses of Swami, and there's one discourse particularly. It was given, I think, in Chennai again, the same discourse which I started with. And Swami says that bhakti actually exists, or love exists, in three levels for human beings. The first one, he says, is the Uttama Bhakti, or what you call as the highest and the best. And in this stage of bhakti, we have full faith in God and we can see divinity in everything. So there is no distinction between self and anything else. And in this state of supreme love, we cannot hate, we cannot do all those, and you will experience that bliss of connectedness with the whole universe. And this, Swami said, is the highest form of bhakti. The Madhyama level is where most of us and a lot of people are there in this, is we have love, but that love is limited to certain people or kith and kin, or those whom we trust, believe, or are benefited from. And while there are other people whom we dislike or whom we don't uh, accept, we try to ignore them and live in our own world of the people we love. And because we have interactions with both of this, we have mixed experiences of, combination of good and bad in our lives. And then there is another category, Swami says, which is adhama, the lowest category. And this is when people have deep loathing for self, you can say, in one sense, because they are feeling deprived, they're cut off from their own love, and they feel they're unable to tolerate other people's happiness or other people's thing, and they developed qualities of jealousy and criticism and blame, etc. And this is sad because it ruins happiness for ourselves. I mean, when we are jealous, forget what it does to somebody else, but firstly, it harms us. And so Swami says that we live in different states. Then what's the use of God in all this picture? The point is when Swami comes into our lives, then he helps us to scale this, to to go from Adama to Madhyama to Uttama. It really helps us. And what I would like to do in the next few minutes is to share a few experiences where I have perceived in my own life on how he has corrected my faults and pushed me to see the bigger picture. And while I'm sure, as in a universal level, a lot of us are same. So the only reason why I take this trouble to talk of these personal and maybe not so complimentary experiences is because it's a learning point. And since it's best we talk about ourselves when it comes to such negative qualities, I would like to share this with all of you. Before that, Swami says a beautiful analogy in the same discourse. This is, I think, in Sathya Sai Speaks, volume 15, I think, and chapter 39, I think it talks about the stages of bhakti, where you can find this. So I would encourage all of you to read the original and not my limited understanding of it. So Swami says here very beautifully, he says, the tree of life, it gives you the fruits of love. And this fruit of love is the rasa swarupa, what Swami says, it's the person, it's full of life, love. But like every fruit is covered with a rind and and has a hard stone or a seed in that. Similarly, for us in our life, we cannot experience that richness of that complete love or what he spoke of the highest love until we remove the skin of desire and throw away these hard seeds of anger and jealousy. And the beauty is, he not only tells us this, but he also allows us, helps us to do this. And that is something which, no amount of uh, gratitude can repay because he's helping you against yourself also. So Swami used to often say that jealousy and anger are born out of egoism, while the grace of God can help you to pull yourself out of this. And this is a experience I had as a student, and it was in a dream, the whole experience. And uh, it taught me a very important lesson. And why I chose to share this is that even today, Swami touches us. You turn to him and he has ways of touching us. And that I remember at some point of time, somebody asked him, like, Swami, how do you know that the dream is somewhere you really visited us? Couldn't it be that we created this whole thing, our own experiences and our own imagination? Are we creating dreams? So this was a question asked by some student, and Swami said, in any dream where I am completely clear to you, it's because I decided to come to your dream. So don't, when the mind plays up a dream, it's like a scrambled images come up, or it's not so continuous. But those dreams where we have a clear feel, Swami said, of Swami, and you clearly see him, it's definitely because he has chosen to visit us. So let me share this particular dream. So this was sometime when I was studying undergraduation. So I was pretty much younger. And like all young people, I had very black and white views about life, the good, the bad. There were no in-betweens and high degree of judgment. And I think that's part of growing up. I mean, all teenagers go through that phase, I think. So I had classified classmates and everybody around me into buckets, good and bad people. And I watch their actions and behavior. I have so much judgment in my heart, and unconsciously, hatred was growing in my heart. And the grace of God is such that He kind of helps you to pull it out at early stages. So one night, after a particular fight and thing, while I slept very righteously, and Swami came in my dream. And in my dream, he had come into the college, this And, it's a circular college and we have a lawn in between. And Swami was standing there and talking to people. And I was at the periphery in my dream. And Swami kept on talking to all these people. And they were all the people whom I criticize. Okay. Literally, there was a collection of all the people I criticize. And he was so animatedly speaking to them. And when I made a little, dare to go near him, he kind of gave me a cold look and continued speaking to those people. I remember in the dream itself, I was like so disappointed and upset that he was ignoring me, and also that, he's investing in the wrong people kind of feeling. And while I was thinking of these thoughts, he suddenly looked at me, and there was still that sternness in his gaze, I remember. And he looked at me, and suddenly he started growing in size. As he grew and grew and grew, he grew to such a size that his single eye was the only thing which was visible to me. That huge, the entire sight of mine could see only one eye, and I could literally see those fine capillaries in his eyes. The eyeball was huge, and in that eyeball, I could see the reflection of all the people whom I was labeling as not so good. It shook me, that dream. I woke up midnight, and I realized it's a dream. And as I was drinking water at that point of time, I realized the message he was making was crystal clear. Everything is me. Don't hate. That was like, I knew it was him. And then I drank water and went back to sleep, and the dream continued. Again, I saw him, the huge Swami, looming so huge in the sky. And he came, and then there was a small tree, like, and he just uprooted the tree. And I could see rainwater filling that part, the pit which was left, the gaping hole in the earth. And the next morning when I woke up, and really we had a thunderstorm, and there was a true tree just opposite the college hostel which fell off. And when I went out with all the other girls to peep at that huge tree, uprooted tree, it suddenly reminded me again of the dream. And then I felt thankful and grateful. I understood that he had pulled out something which was slowly finding root in my heart. And this is the God for us who takes the trouble not only to accept us, but accept our faulty love for him, which is ringed with so much of self and ego and so many things. And he is so gentle that he actually holds each one of us by the hand. And even if we do not cooperate, do not listen, he actually has the grace to drag us. I used to always see these young mothers, taking these children to school, and they are crying, they don't want to go, but the mother hardens her heart and drags the child to school because it's good for the child. And that's the way our Saima is, because he takes us through the school of life and he teaches us all the lessons simply because he loves us so immeasurably. I would like to share another story with you all, and this story was happened with the physical Swami. So I remember this was an interview when I used to have this strange experience that every time um, every semester end, I would get a dream in which I would get a report card from Swami on how I have been in that semester, literally. I remember one dream, he came, and as I went near him, he quickly raised his window and kind of blocked my presence. I was very upset because that means something I've done is not pleasing him. I kept on searching my heart to know what it was. And after some days, I began to think this whole dream thing is created by me. I mean, how can you get every semester a dream? This is like too engineered, And one day when we were walking into the interview room, he looked up and he said, "Much better this semester, much better." And then I realized that report card was not accident. He is maintaining the report card. So this was one interview when we were sitting and Swami said, he looked at me and said, "Too much anger, too much anger." And my mother said, "No, Swami, she hardly gets angry. This girl is not having a temper like that." Like she came to defense of her child, but also because she was genuinely surprised because I don't generally show my anger so much. When he looked at said, "No, you ask her." He said. He asked me, "Chippu, like, do you get angry?" And I said, "Yes, Swami, I do get angry." But I also went on a defensive mode. I said, "Swami, but you always say when we get angry, we should go to the prayer hall. I mean, we should mop the floor or do activity, look into the mirror, drink water." And I used to do that. Whenever I used to get angry, I used to go to the prayer hall and I used to mop the floor from one end to the other and work out that anger and try not spilling it on other people because we all live together. It's natural that we should do that at some point of time. And then Swami looked at me and he said, I'll never forget. He gave that pause where he looked at me and then he asked, "But why should you get angry in the first place?" And I had no answer because yeah, I think that anger is a legitimate feeling. I mean, we are, as human beings, allowed to get angry. And here was Swami asking, why should you get angry at all? And then I started going and reading up what Swami said about anger. And Swami said the cause of anger is thwarted desire. Generally, when desire, as we wish, what we want, does not happen, our reaction is anger. So he was actually pushing me to the deeper end. Inquire why the anger. So this is our teacher and master. Not just does he help us in overcoming negative emotions, but he also takes the trouble to teach us that we should, introspect and go back and see what's the cause and what is the beginning and how can we, because he's given us all a body, a mind, a heart, which we have to invest in life. And the way to invest was what he was showing. So this is, again, a oft quoted incident, but I think is very significant one in my life. Now, does that happen now is the question. Does Swami teach these lessons even now? And I'd like to share another story which happened. Again, uh, I am the villain of this story, but all the same. Uh, so what happened was we have a system in our hostel which is called a mentoring system, and generally each teacher is given about 2 rooms or so, which means about 12 to 15 students who are under her care personally. So what we generally do is we meet them pretty more often than usual. Like we have weekly or monthly meetings with them, and we try to understand each of them personally. And generally, we have satsangs. We talk about Swami and all. And if these children, we basically are trying to create a rapport with them, so that if they have a problem or anything, they have somebody to come back to and talk to. And in the process, we get to know about them, their backgrounds, and it's a very beautiful duty. Swami used to always say that teachers should be involved, know more about their students. So there was this room of mine, and I knew the children in the room, at least so I thought that I knew them. And there were some children who were very emotional and expressive thing. And one day they came running to me and they said, Ma'am, Swami has come to our room. See, there's Vibhuti on the photo. You should come and see it, and things like that. So while I was walking to that room, there was one child who was a slight drama queen girl, the kind who would do things to get attention. And a part of my crooked mind is thinking, I hope they're not doing such things just to get attention. And I hope that, they shouldn't get into these kind of habits and all this, what would I say, tape was going into my head as I was walking towards the room. And I was joined by another colleague of mine, Raji ma'am, who was the warden then. And she also was going to that room. So we both went together to the room, and we saw these children, beaming faces, so happy, that Swami has come to their room. And there's this picture in their altar with Vibhuti on it. Mm. And I was like kind of screwing my eyes and looking at it like, does it look put or does it look natural and things like that. My monkey mind was totally active. While the warden ma'am was so happy with it, and she was very warm and effusive to them. After the incident, we both walked out of the room, and she asked me, Suma, what's wrong with you? Why were you behaving differently? Why weren't you happy? And I started telling her all my reservations and fears. And she was saying, no, no, they wouldn't do that to Swami. I mean, it's understandable if they do the attention drama for other things. I'm sure it won't go to. And I was saying, no, I think sometimes we make these, thing that they can't do this or they won't do this, but we should be open to some kind of logical argument. And while we both were walking out of that thing, we entered what we have the dining space for the teachers. And next to the dining space, there is a room which the storeroom. The storeroom is where all the grains are kept and other things are kept. And in the storeroom, right high, it's a huge wall there. And on top of it, there's a big picture of Swami. So high that you cannot reach it until you put up a, ladder or something to reach it. That's how high it is. So she was going into that room and I was going towards the dining space. So I had turned and she turned, and suddenly I heard her voice saying, Suma, come back. So I turned and went to the dining space and I saw her looking up, and I also followed her gaze. And right in front of me, that huge picture of Swami, I saw a small bobble, a small, like a little balloon of vibhuti colored thing, which grew in size, burst, and sprayed right in front of my eyes. We both just stared in shocked silence for some time. And then I told her, I think I got my message. I understood what Swami was telling me. It is his hostel. They are his children. He can choose to come anytime. And I was wrong to even doubt it for a second. And he was just giving me a sweet slap, I can say, to wake me up of my own illusion. So, what I'm trying to say is that time and space is no barrier, and God can transcends all of that. And He still, even today, is reaching out to help us learn some very, very important lessons in life. As I was reading the discourse, I also found some very interesting things on how bhakti grows. Swami gave us the stages of love, and then he talks about how bhakti should grow also in our hearts in the same discourse. And he says there is bhakti is bhautika bhakti, which is ritualistic bhakti, where we do puja or we do other things in order to focus our mind, bhajan, etc., to focus our mind on japam, dhyanam. He speaks of all of these navavidha bhakti margas, and what he says is that um these early stages of this allow us to focus on him, and therefore they have their place in the bhakti marga because they allow us to keep our concentration on him. But it doesn't end there. At the next stage, he talks about ekanta bhakti, and he says it's misunderstood many times that you should be alone or something. It's not being alone because nobody can. It is about inner control, and inner control doesn't mean to freeze your mind or control your thoughts. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean refining the thoughts, he says. And then Swami speaks about Ananya Bhakti, which is a completely surrendered bhakti. This again is our end goal, probably. When at one point of time, we will not have to make no effort, but our mind is centered on Him at all times. That could be probably that feeling of Ananya Bhakti, because I can't speak of that since I haven't experienced that in its complete form. But where we struggle is at Ekanta Bhakti level, like where we are trying to focus our mind completely on Him and rid ourselves from other distractions. And so I would like to tell you a few more examples that Swami gave to explain this concept. He gave this beautiful example where he says, suppose you have a glass of water that is very small because quantity of water. But if that water is still, you can see a clear reflection of the sun in it. The ocean, in comparison, has so much water, but because it's turbulent, you cannot see the reflection of the sun, except like a diffused color on it. And he says, that is the difference between Ekanta Bhakti and not having it. When the mind is not turbulent, then you see a clear image of God in your own heart. And that is why we must cultivate, he says, this ability to quieten the mind and hold it. Here is the exact words that Swami has used, and you can see this. Ekanta Bhakti is subtle state achieved by effective control of the mind and experiencing one's inner self, that is the Antaratma, means holding it steady without wandering around. But to be able to cleanse the mind of impure thoughts is the correct meaning of Ekanta. And this is a sadhana. It is to be practiced in a lonely atmosphere. I think in that discourse, maybe lonely is not the correct word, but it means aloneness, where you can. I see our English translation doesn't do full justice to the Telugu that he speaks in. So those of you who can understand Telugu should be hearing the original discourse where he talks about this small space where for some time in a day we are free of disturbances and you can focus on just watch the thoughts subside and feel the spirit inside yourself. In another discourse, actually, not the same discourse, Swami gives a very beautiful example. He says, if dry leaves were to fall on an incense stick, it automatically will get um, the flame will get blown out and it will stop burning because it cannot handle the weight of those dry leaves. But if you put dry leaves in a forest fire, it'll consume it. He says when the flame of God is burning very brightly in your soul, distractions can't get you. Because when the distractions come, it consumes that distraction also into it. But when your focus and your flame of God is not fully grown, then you have to be careful about distractions because then they can put the flame off. And that is the example Swami gives to show us that. And that's why he suggests the ekanta. He says there should be some God time, me time, which is completely devoted to God and where not even your own desires should come into it. You keep it as a space of holiness. And actually, we need to read more about what Swami says on these issues. Because I was looking at bhakti in particular, I found this and I thought it would be appropriate to share it with all of you. I would like to share another experience about why one is about not having thoughts, that space, but the rest of the day we are consumed by thoughts. And thoughts actually shape who we are. So it's very important for us, Swami says. So let me share another experience with you where Swami taught this important lesson about thoughts. So there was this time again with all self complications and self based thoughts. I had kind of distanced myself from Swami. I think the ego has very subtle games to play, and this particular ego, I call it the inverted ego because it's acting holy ego. It's an ego which is trying to be good, but actually is still ego. And I used to think like, Swami is so great and I'm so low. I have no right to be near him and all. This is just excuses because God is always available to all of us. But how would we love to make a story, right? And so this is my story. I was making the story pretty realistic. And the stupidity went so far that when Swami was giving Padnamaskar, I decided I'm not worthy of it and didn't get up to go take Padnamaskar. And he was so kind. He looked at me across the crowd of girls and he asked me, you didn't take Namaskar. Get up, he said. So I got up and I walked across those students and went to him. And by then, all these stupid defenses broke down. I remember when Tagore talks, he says, like we build up castles and walls against you, against God with sand. And one wave of love comes and all that sand gets, dissolved. That's how it is when Swami comes. It's all your defenses, all your stupidity, it just vanishes when he comes near you. And when he called me like that and I went to him, I just broke down and cried. I remember feeling his hand on my head as he kept tapping and saying, Chalu, Chalu, stop crying. And when I looked up, he asked me, "What do you want?" And I said, "Swami, I want Chitta Suddhi. I want purity of thought." Because that was my biggest problem that time, as I had diagnosed it as. And he said something which is a huge lesson for all of us. He said, "Your thoughts are not you. They are coming because of your ahara and vihara. Ahara is food, and the food for our thoughts is from our sense organs. So whatever we feed through our senses actually becomes the content of our thoughts. That is why Swami always tells us that we should refine the input. So whatever comes through every sense organ, if we choose the highest, any of us, we won't eat anything which is not healthy for us. At least we hope we like things which are not healthy. But for maintaining health, we need to look at things which are healthy. So similarly, we have to monitor what comes in. And that Swami said was ahara. And then he said vihara. Vihara, which is with whom we stay or with what we keep company. So not only do we have to monitor what we bring into our mind space, but we also need to see which kind of thoughts we spend most time with, because that's the company we are keeping. And that thoughts we entertain will actually shape us. So again, he was teaching very subtly, very beautifully, simply. That's the whole of Vedanta is simplified in small things for us, making it so practicable. And Swami was saying that and that, you should just monitor what comes in, and then you will be happier. I remember through all that confusion and haze of self-criticism and condemnation, he said this. And then he also told me at that point of time, have self-confidence, have self-confidence. And this is the beautiful thing. Who loves you so much that they always pick up the best side of you, the highest side of you, and constantly tells you that is you, that is you. Don't look at other parts of yourself, look at this highest and convert the rest of it into that. And this is the beautiful thing that Swami does for us. One of the fundamental things that happen, and I say this again and again because this is one way of understanding, the way I understood at least, is the process. What we generally do is we pursue life goals and we think God is a means to those goals. So God has to give me a better job, God has to help me in this, God has to help me that. While I am seeking recognition, I am seeking wealth, I am seeking power, I am seeking position, I have my own goal list. And the purpose of God is to assist me in reaching this. And this is the way we look at God many times. But when you open up your heart to Him, there is a subtle paradigm shift. And what happens is suddenly God becomes the goal. He is what you want to achieve. And so life becomes the means and God becomes the goal. Now you're looking at ways in which you can use your life to align to that God. And this paradigm shift is what begins I think, encapsulates our uh, spiritual journey, which starts. And I mean, of course, this is just one way when we can look at it, but definitely Swami has spoken of it much more. So this is not based on exactly what Swami said. This is just my understanding of it. So I'm qualifying it, what Swami said and what I have interpreted. So one of the things, another story I would like to share with you is over the years, Swami has, you know, come into our lives in multiple ways and guided us so many ways. My mother, my father, my sister, and me, we have so much to be grateful for. So one interview, when we were sitting with him, uh, I think it was my mother who said, I don't remember, but she said, Swami, how can we repay you? We can't repay you. You've given us too much. I mean, lifetimes won't be enough to repay you. And he looked at us with so much tenderness and then he said, what is the most precious thing that you have? He said. And he said, that is your hridaya. That's your heart. And that you have given to me. So what more do you want to give me? He asked. I don't know. There's only God who can convert even our faults into goodness. But he was kind to tell us that you don't have to. repay me. You just have to turn to me. You just have to give your heart to me. I'll do the rest. I'll take care of everything. That's what he was saying. I remember another occasion, we have this habit of saying thanks to people. If they do, it comes involuntarily. If somebody helps you, you just say thanks and sorry. Those kind of words come easily. And on one occasion, when Swami just handed me something, I said, "Thank you, Swami." It just came out involuntarily. And he said, "You thank outsiders, you don't thank insiders," he said. And it was another lesson to say, look, I'm inside you. I'm the closest thing, maybe more real than you, like me is my God in me. It's not me who's real. And what thanks can we give such a God? It's not possible to thank him at all. And so this itself was also a lesson thing. But gratitude is a natural feeling one feels when one encounters love. But even the sense of gratitude is grace of God. We have to probably realize that. In the end, I would just like to say one beautiful quote which I read recently. It just touched me so deeply that I made up my mind to share it with all of you. So this was a quote which I'm sorry I can't tell you the discourse actually, though I have it. So when we were studying prema, whatever Swami has said about prema, and one of the research interns found this quote and sent it on the group, and I just loved this quote. And Swami says, when a calf is born, it is still covered in that fetal liquid and all those remnants of it. Yet the mother cow licks clean all that fetal matter and nudges the calf to get up, stand, and walk. And unsteady, shaky legs, the calf that is just born raises itself and then runs. And Swami said, when a Pashu itself can do something so much, do you think Pashupati doesn't care about you? He asked. He said, when the go is so eager to save the child, the Gopala, how can he allow you to remain in the filth of samsara? He will, cleanse you. He will guide you. He will help you. I found this so reassuring and beautiful. Swami is telling very clearly that through the ages, through whoever it is, Swami will always pick us up, help us. All we need to do is to want it desperately. And I think God will always take care of us and go ahead on this day of Aradhana to love our beautiful God. So thank you, Sai Ram.
Shri Saisham Dayanidhim Sanatana Saradhim Sundararupinam Mangalam Muktipradayakam